Congratulations on all of you attending today. It's a terrific cross-section of people, and in fact I feel like I am with my people here today. So it's been a really good session from my perspective this morning. So hopefully there'll be something in what I have to say about this secondary dwelling that is beneficial to some of you as well. I'm going to share this real example of a building design experience with you. It's a fairly modest secondary dwelling. There are a couple of constraints. We had a client, and the client has a very tight budget. So we're trying to get outcomes that suit the client, but also are compliant. And where we've landed at with a lot of consideration is probably not the best design outcome, but we believe it's compliant with the relevant regulations. And that said, I would certainly welcome feedback or opportunity through the question time to do things better. And can I also acknowledge you for your help yesterday, Lisa? Last minute call out to Lisa, who was good enough to go through some of the questions I had and respond. So she meant it when she said she's there to help. So the site is 600 square metres, and it has a fairly even fall of 3 metres from front to back, 9.25% fall from the rear of the site to the curb. There is an existing house, which is 99 square metres right at the back of the block, and it too has a carport, and it's about 40 or 50 years old. Initially, the client sought to have a dual occupancy unit, which was 89 square metres plus carport that we designed, and while an application was prepared and lodged with local government, we subsequently withdrew that application. And the reason for that was a secondary dwelling and a dual occupancy, although both class 1, in building terms, they assess differently in most local government from a planning scheme perspective. And the client chose to withdraw his proposal because the council asked for a stormwater catchment plan being prepared and implemented to address the inherent overland flow path from the land higher up. It's on the north face of Mount Coolum, so the run through that property is quite extensive at times. So a secondary dwelling didn't trigger the same concerns from a council assessment perspective, but certainly from a builder and a building designer's perspective, it was very much on my radar. You might have noticed in the original cover shot that we did have a ramped entry, and that was how we intended for occupants of that secondary dwelling to access the patio and then the home. But unfortunately, the rise up from the street was too steep to get to the base of that ramp. So we really targeted the carport from then onwards as a better option for access. There were some waterproofing concerns that I had about the large deck at the front. And you'll see that in this design here. We started with that initial concept on the left, and then that's not the final design on the right, but it's part of the design development that we undertook. You'll see that bottom of the patio there, the bottom of the patio shows that ramp and the flat area coming off the driveway. So that was abandoned, and we thought we'll go up through the driveway, park in the carport. We were able to make it the regulation width to get the clearance necessary. And then we were looking at the levels between the patio and the carport. Now, a step-free threshold normally works well with about a 35mm transition. I had great concerns about the carport and the patio being anything like that in relation to the internal floor space, with water coming in from the back over the rear sites. We have a retainment wall at the back of this home, and whilst we have drainage that is been designed to pick up the water and direct it away from the back of the site, I still had concerns about storm events in Queensland, southeast Queensland, and also just the fact that the occupants of the home will use that carport as normal people do, and they want to hose it out and wash cars and do things like that that you and I wouldn't do, knowing that the floor is virtually level with inside. So it's to prevent those unintended consequences. The two design aspects that I really want to elaborate in this presentation are the step-free access to the home and also the bathroom design, although we have had a good look at that already. The patio has a roof right over it, but only a 600 eave, and similar the carport and the house itself. So that 600 eave certainly wasn't going to give us much protection with storm or wind-driven rain, apart from the overland flow. If I look at the ABCB housing provisions, section 3.3.3 on surface water must be directed away from a Class 1 building. And in this section of the standard, there are, for slab on ground situations, minimum set downs nominated in association with additional falls away from the building. For example, 50 mil to an outdoor slab set down, such as our patio or carport, but then the lower surface must also slope away for about 25 or 30 mil over that first metre, depending on the rainfall of the area that the building's constructed. Alternatively, 150 mil set down from the internal finished floor level to the concrete slab outside is deemed compliant. And as a builder, I'm very comfortable with that 150 mil set down. So section 3.3.3 also states there doesn't apply to the landing area provided for the purposes of the ABCB standard for livable housing design, except for the channel drain. There's also other considerations that we look at when we're designing a home, because we're not looking solely at these requirements for livable housing. We're looking at all aspects of the regulations. So there's local government planning requirements, also state the height of the overflow relief gully relevant to the drainage fittings, which is typically 150 mil below the lowest sanitary fittings. But this regulation didn't affect our consideration in this particular example. As I mentioned, the site is affected by the overland stormwater runoff, and the finished floor level has been cut into the existing slope of the land. The retainment wall is about 1 metre high across the southern or rear of the building. So we've set that rear path down 175 mil. So effectively it's like a wide spoon drain at the back of the building and directed with pits to the outside edges of the building. So at this point, we were trying to investigate how we could get in from that carport to the living area. And we moved the back door that had been out to the clothesline at the rear of the kitchen there, out to the side of the carport. And we put in a recessed door and subsequently the drain. But when we looked at it, the drain would have to go the full length of the living room in that carport, because with the 600 eave at the rear of the living room there, that's the only protection we had for that rear corner of the carport. So, and we still had a set down to the covered patio. So ideally, I wanted the carport and the outdoor area to all be the same level. That's the detail Lisa kindly provided yesterday, showing that typical threshold with the drain. And I think that would work quite neatly in an entry porch situation. If we were to apply that in my carport situation, that drain, as I say, would have had to have gone the full length. Just the other considerations I have with the set downs is, and the reason for that Hardy's detail there is looking at termite design considerations in accordance with the standard and the minimum clearance that we like to see of 75 mil. There are lots of ways of treating termite protection to the home, including using framing that is treated. But there's a 25-year limit on the treated framing, and we are obliged to protect the home for 50 years, as I understand it. Then there's also retic systems and monolithic slabs. So, I mean, all these considerations come into designing the home and trying to balance out these new requirements. So just moving to the bathroom, and as I say, Lisa's covered that pretty well. We wanted a big wide shower, and our first option was the one there that's marked non-compliant. It was non-compliant because we had a level area in front of the door that fell to the waist. And it was pointed out to me that the entire shower area needed to fall to the waist. So we looked at another option there, which made the shower smaller and really, I think, inferior to the option for anyone living in that home. So where we landed on both the access for the dwelling at the main entry and for the bathroom is in this slide here. And we've kept the carport and the patio all at the one level, but 150 mil lower than the house. We have moved the stacking sliding door, which is our main point of entry, and we have plenty of scope there for a ramp, which can either be a concrete ramp or manufactured off-site and installed. We've shown that one as a 1 in 8, and as Lisa pointed out to me, if you were actually opening the door, you'd be somewhat frustrated in trying to get that door open with a 1 in 8 slope without a landing at the top. But there is still room to pull that ramp back, but it's not a great outcome. But it does provide a compliant outcome if we pull that back and put a landing. And with the bathroom, we've ended up falling the entire shower to a longer drain so that we meet the minimum requirements. And we also get a really useful size of shower. So as I say, very happy to get any feedback or questions, but it's been quite a journey. Thank you.